Welcome to the AP cast with Phil and Alex, episode 12, getting your guy versus waiting for a player to fall. Let's get it. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the AP cast. I'm Phil, he's Alex, and we're about to get into this and break this thing down. We've got some real interesting topic that is divisive as anything is in Raider Nation, but there's a couple different styles of approach. Now, if you approach a draft like a mock draft, then it's always going to be best for you to trade back. If you approach a draft like a general manager trying to get better for your football team, and you have a guy identified as the target that you want, then why would you ever wait for your guy to fall? Why wouldn't you feel confident enough in him to go get it? And so that brings us to this topic in this particular show. So you can see that we have Michael Penix in the background. We are both Mr. Penix here for a myriad of reasons, which Alex would be happy to get into. But by that very same token, we were both in agreement that if the Raiders are able to trade up and somehow secure Jaden Daniels, be equally pleased with that as well. But in any case, if you have a guy identified that you believe in enough to be the guy to lead you into the future, what sense does it make to roll the dice on getting another player in front of him that you don't need as much as you need that player because you think you'll be able to go back and get him with a different pick?
Yeah, and it's what you just said that makes all the sense in the world, that makes all the difference in the world. And obviously this should go without saying, but you want to win in this modern era of football, you want your best chances of winning, I should say, you go out there and you get a game-changing quarterback. I mean, it's really that simple. And then you just take into account the Raiders roster. What they need the most is the quarterback. You take into account what's going on with the roster because they're in win now mode. The window, I don't want to say the window's open, but the window has the potential to be open right now, right? And that's because Devontae Adams is here, who's 30 years old, and he's not getting any younger. You got to take advantage of that. You got to get your guy. If you identify it as somebody you got to trade up for, do it. If you identify it as Michael Penix and you're comfortable sitting at 13, do it. If you identify it as Michael Penix and you want to move up 2 or 3 spots to do it, to secure him, do it. Just get your guy.
Or whoever is your guy. Now, I would hate for it to be Bo Nix, but that option is on the table. But the reality is that you can't wait on your quarterback. I mean, you can't do it. You've tried it already, and the conventional way, the conventional wisdom and way that you could point a finger at what the Raiders have done. And is if you're not going to go and get your guy at quarterback, you make the defense as absolutely beastly as you can, and you make your offensive line as beastly as you can, and get you a bunch of running backs that you can just continue to throw at defenses until they crack under pressure. And then you have your quarterback that you're not so confident in only go out there and stick to his game, however limited that may or may not be. You could point to the Raiders and what they've done on this defense, and you could very well make that very same argument that that's what they're doing.
No, for sure. And when it comes to the 13th pick, there's a lot of people that want offensive tackle, a lot of people that want cornerback. And let's be clear, those positions would help the Raiders. But we're not arguing that wouldn't help the Raiders. What we're arguing is that quarterback's the most important position in football, and it happens to be the one that the Raiders need the most. It just, I mean, come on. It's pretty obvious.
Yes, I mean you didn't give Gardner Minshew $7.5 million this season to be your starting quarterback, especially given how much money they paid Jimmy for the lackluster performance that they got. So you certainly didn't pay him to be the guy, which would show that they have every intention of drafting a quarterback. So if you've got the intention to draft a quarterback, then why wait? Go get your guy. If it's Jaden Daniels, do what you got to do to get up there and get the guy. Because the reality is that next year you're going to have even more cap space than you had this year because the amount of dead cap space that you have, which is money that you're paying the players who are no longer on the team, will be negligible. And that'll count towards the cap and give you more opportunities to continue to turn over the roster and select better and better players and continue to improve. The addition of Christian Wilkins shows a big attempt at leveling the playing field and the distribution of resources throughout the team. The defense, by and away, outplayed the offense last season, and they deserve to get a shot in the arm wherever they can.
Yeah, certainly, man. And also, all these other positions that we're talking about, which again would help the Raiders if they drafted cornerback, whatever they draft. Some people want defensive tackle. There's also the aspect like, okay, well, you look at free agency. What's the best you can do at quarterback? Gardner Minshew. I mean, I don't know if that was the best option the Raiders could have done based on everyone who's a free agent. I mean, there was Kirk, but I mean that was just you're not going to pay that. But
What's Kirk won?
What's up?
What's Kirk ever won?
Yeah, no, exactly. So the point I'm making is, if you want a defensive tackle, you can look at free agency. You can get a guy like Christian Wilkins, who the Raiders got. You want a cornerback? There were so many guys. There's still so many guys. Ahkello Witherspoon makes so much sense from the Rams. He can come in. Tre'Davious White, who obviously they visited earlier in the week, he's still in play. You never know what's going to happen there. You can't do anything about quarterback, though. You can't do anything because it's the most important position in football. And if a team gets their guy, I mean, they're holding on to that guy for dear life. So it's really that simple. Make it simple. It's so simple. It doesn't need to be overcomplicated. Devontae Adams, I go back to him not getting any younger. You're just wasting it. You go defense. This is what happens. The Raiders had a top 10 defense last year. They didn't have a quarterback. They finished under 500 because of that. I get it. They had Josh McDaniels. AP stepped in. He improved the team. But still, they finished under 500 because they couldn't do anything offensively. And the same thing's going to happen. Same thing is going to keep happening. Devontae Adams is going to keep getting older. I mean, Devontae Adams just dropped off 400 yards from the season prior. I'll talk about that later, what contributes to that. But the point I'm trying to make with that is, I mean, he might already be on the decline. You got to take advantage right now.
Well, there's a fair amount of physical decline, but I would be remiss if I didn't remind you of how many opportunities that were missed because he did not have a quarterback that could get him the football when he got open. Now he dropped more passes this year than he has in any other year. That one we can both admit to readily and easily. But there were many times where he beat his man, got open, never got a look, never got a catchable ball. They sailed over his head. They fell short. They got picked off. They made it to everybody's hands but his. And usually when the football makes it to his hands, he comes down with it. That's why they paid him all that money. And I would, if you're going to bring in a rookie quarterback, you're going to want to have the best route runner in football. And such a proven star who's going to consistently get open and get to an area where he can get a catchable ball and make a difference in the game, then he should absolutely stick around. It will make life easier for that quarterback instead of having to learn with a rookie receiver trying to learn the league and go through all those growing pains. And there's a natural order to things. And with Devontae, he's number one. With Jacoby, he's number two. So with Trey Tucker, he's the speed guy. He's going to come in, and whether it's deep overs, whether it's drags, or whether he just runs taking off straight down the field on a go or a fade,
Mm-hmm.
There's a way to use all of those pieces together, and if you take away Devontae, that leaves a gap a hole that you can't fill.
No, certainly, and I know, like I just talked about, the quarterback situation struggled, obviously, and Devontae Adams suffered. His numbers suffered, and people might be like, "Well, Devontae Adams hurt himself in a lot of ways with the drops," which is certainly true. But actually, I was looking at this earlier in the week, and per PFF, everybody judges drops different because it's very subjective. It's not an official NFL stat, but per PFF, they have Puka Nacua had the most drops in the NFL. He had an historic season. And the second most drops in the NFL this season was Tyreek Hill, who had another historic season. And they had historic seasons. Devontae Adams had, for Devontae Adams, a terrible season. He still cracked over 1,000 yards, but he didn't even get double-digit touchdowns. And for Devontae Adams, who's arguably the best receiver in the league, that is very pedestrian. So the drops, sure, he could have caught more balls, but I mean, the other guys who dropped more just had historic seasons, and Devontae pedestrian.
Well, the other guy, the when you have a historic season as a wide receiver, you can't have one of those without volume. And if you're getting volume targets, you'll have volume drops simply because of the amount of passes being thrown your way. That's not to say that I'm going to give them a pass for it, but at the same time, though they still caught way more balls than they dropped, and that's why they had the success that they had.
Yeah, no, very true, very true.
I mean, at that point, you're looking at the drops are kind of like a batting average. These guys are dropping maybe one or two out of every 10, and we're saying that's horrible because it's 1 or 2 out of every 10. But what they are catching is going for record-breaking numbers.
Yep, because Matt Stafford and Tua, I mean, there's a lot of Tua hate, but at the end of the day, he's a fringe top 10 quarterback. He might be outside of the top 10. We're talking 12 and 13, and Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew are nowhere near. So it's a clear difference.
Well, a healthy Tua is fringes. I think I could put him in the top 10. A healthy Tua.
I agree with that.
Now, I can't vouch for his health because it's liable to go in any direction with any given hit. But he definitely when he's humming, said they can make it happen. I just think that they got set up horribly with that -40 in Kansas City that they had to go out and play in. That shit was crazy. I was like, there's no way. I would try to walk out there. My body would be like, fool, it is -40 out here. Turn your ass around and go back in that locker room. There's nothing you need to do out here to be in -40.
Yeah, that was crazy. And I remember that game, fans taking their shirts off and shit. Insane. Absolutely insane. You couldn't pay me enough. You couldn't pay me enough to be there.
Well, and the way they really had to shovel out the seats just to sit down, like you're sitting in a freezer. Literally, you got ice chilling next to you. You're sitting on if they're metal seats, it's all nice and frozen. Even the plastic should be frozen. Shit is crazy.
Yeah, no doubt.
Shit, it's crazy. But moving back to the topic. I'm not one of those people that think that you can trade back, and just because you think that a guy's going to be somewhere, that there's not somebody lurking that values him clearly a lot higher than you did when you decided to pass on him. And when the quarterback situation is one where you've already made the best improvement that you possibly could outside of the draft, then you don't have room to blow it in the draft.
No, for sure. Yeah, it's not Madden, man. Once it happens, and if another team a lot of people like to say, well, Penix at 13, I don't know, because it's unlikely that someone will take him in that range. But you got to realize, unlikely means you don't fucking know. Like, you just don't fucking know. Like, you trade back, there's a chance that the Penix is just gone, and you traded back for no reason, and now you look foolish, and you frankly ruined any opportunity you had to have that window open that I talked about earlier. And you did that for what? To get a little bit more draft capital to try to look smart. I mean, chances are probably low that happens, but they're chances nonetheless. And you have to, if Michael Penix is your guy or any quarterback who's available right there, if they're your guy, you have to take them. You cannot trade back and risk it. There's no point.
No, there's not. And I'll even do you one better. If you were, let's say you were to take Penix at 13. Let's say you didn't trade, you didn't take a trade, so you used your draft pick at 13. You said you had 8. We are going in with 8, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so now you have 7 more draft picks remaining. You still have the 13th pick in the second round. If you were to take that and decide that you wanted to trade back into the fringes of the first round and maybe get that same guy that you wanted initially who's dropped considerably more than you thought he would, because it happens every year, then you can get him with that 5th-year option as well, which is the benefit to taking guys in the first round. And you can set yourself up in position for success for years to come with that particular shrewd move. It will make a lot more sense for the Raiders to be trading up than it would be to trade back, because they don't have a whole lot of holes on this roster. You can point, they have the guys that they pretty much want to start or want to be the position guys going forward already. So you have your starting running back, you've got your backup running back, you've got your 1, 2, and 3 receivers, and now you need 4, 5, and possibly 6. You've got your starting tight end, you've got your blocking tight end, you've got your tackle squared away, you have your guards. It somehow slipped my mind that DJ Fluker was on the team and supposedly in great shape, ready to go. And he's had success in this league, and if he's playing a guard instead of tackle and he's better over there on that side, then actually, you know what? I didn't think about that. So you're playing a tackle at guard, presumably on the right side, which would be the blind side of the gentleman in our background. So you're bringing back Mumford. Now, Colton Miller came into the league as a right tackle, and they converted him to left.
Yeah, Donald Penn's last year.
And there's positional flexibility here, and you could spin this line around to make it work. And I'm not going to say that it would be the easiest thing in the world, because Jones will tell you the footwork is so completely different that everybody can't just flip the switch like that.
Yeah, for sure.
But it also is very manageable and gives them a much bigger line.
Yeah, and another thing is, if you're really that worried about right tackle, and I'm not saying it's not something to worry about, but if you're really that worried, what people are saying with the 44th pick, where everybody's saying, well, you have pick 44, just trade up and grab Penix with that one. Trade up and grab a right tackle, because a lot of the tackles that are going to fly off the board early are going to be left tackles. We're talking Joe Alt. Joe Alt is a left tackle. We're talking the Penn State guy. I don't know how to say his name. These are left tackles. Guys like Latham, who's going to be gone before then, I can only assume, right tackle. You got the Georgia
Amarius Mims.
Yep, you can play right tackle. So you have options, and you're probably going to have, I don't want to say quite a few of them, but you're going to have more options than you would if you were looking for a left tackle, because obviously left tackles dominate as more quarterbacks are right-handed. So it's not really that big of a deal, if I'm going to be honest with you. I don't believe it is.
Or you could even draft his right tackle. The guys from Washington. It's the name that starts with an S. I'm having a problem remembering it off the top of my head. Or Rosengarten, I think, was the tackle. But his guard was available as well. The Oos. But yeah, either way, it's not as big a shift as everybody wants to make it out to be. Now, the thing that I can't wrap my head around is how nobody thinks Michael Penix is a first round draft. Like, the man almost threw for 5,000 yards in college. What are we talking about?
Man, every knock on Michael Penix that is a legitimate knock, and I don't think it's a big deal, and I'll say why. But every knock that's a legitimate knock is his injury history or his age, and it's almost all injury history because the age is like, who really gives a fuck, you know? And you know, he has some severe injury history. He really does. He tore both ACLs, but like at the end of the day, it's such a quarterback protective league, and obviously we know these injuries happen every year with quarterbacks. They're out for the year, even with all the steps they take to protect them. So I'm not trying to say like it's not going to happen, you know. But we've seen guys like, I've talked about this on the show before. Guys like Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, they all had a serious injury and their careers were thought to be done. And then they came back and they won a ring. Every single one of those guys I just named, and they're all top 5, 7 quarterbacks of all time. Peyton Manning and Tom Brady are, nobody can deny that they're top 3 all time. You know, I think that's 1 and 2 because Joe Montana was a little before my time, so I didn't get to watch him every Sunday. So I'll admit that there's a little age bias there.
Oh, excuse me, he has 4.
Yeah, he had 4. He had 4.
Yeah, him and Bradshaw.
Yeah, 4-0. And yeah, man, it's, and Drew Brees, I mean, there's a lot of slander with Drew Brees, but can you really put him past top 7 all time? I don't know if you can. He was thought to have his career done with the Chargers after an injury, and he won a ring with the Saints. I mean, guys are thought to have these injuries all the time that are just done. Their career's done, and they just bounce back. And if you think Michael Penix is going to be great, because those guys I just named are great, right? If you think Michael Penix is going to be great, then you have to assume that same type of deal.
I mean, and for a franchise that prides itself on the deep ball, I mean, it's amazing how much hate that I won't even call it hate. Yeah, I'll call it hate because we bring up the knees. He's been healthy and hasn't missed a game in 2 years. He got checked out by all 32 team physicians at the combine. All 32 team physicians cleared him to play, said he was good to go. There was no issue. I mean, what, you're talking about an injury history that happened 2-3 years ago. We talked about age. Listen, it's 2024. It is what it is. You're looking at the last of the COVID kids. Your super seniors, your 6-year guys. They're all coming out. That's done after. So yeah. They'll be done. They'll be finished. You won't see any more of those guys. And if somebody, I mean, he's roughly the same age as everyone else that's being drafted.
Yeah,
which is the only young kid the only kid that's getting drafted is JJ McCarthy.
I mean, this is quarterbacks. I mean, you look now, Brady, Peyton, Aaron Rodgers right now, they're all playing until they're old, like 40s old. Like
past 40. Yeah, past 40.
And even if you don't want to talk about the greats, I mean, you could talk about Ryan Fitzpatrick. You can talk about who's still playing right now. That's pretty. Joe Flacco's playing still. Josh McCown played forever. I mean, there's a whole bunch of guys.
Yeah, you could even look at at the Raider history. You're talking about Vince Evans out there doing it. I had another one that I just lost the train of thought.
But yeah, man, you got to figure, what is Penix, 26? You have to figure, like,
24.
24? I mean, that's
24.
Than I thought.
Penix is 24. Jaden Daniels will be 24.
That's even younger than I thought. And I was fine at 26 because even at 26, you got to figure, like, worst case scenario, he's balling for a whole decade. Like, that's the worst case scenario. So, okay, worst case scenario, he's balling for 12 years. Like, that's a negative? Are we being for real right now?
Said he's getting his years on the bench. Instead of staying on the bench, he was in college perfecting his craft. I'm like, you see, the type of quarterback that he is not a quarterback who's bent on his athleticism and his ability to run and scramble. Said he's a quarterback who uses his mind and uses his arm. He steps in, he throws, and when he throws one of the prettiest balls you could ever want to see.
Oh, for sure. And, you know, people wondering how, because he does have a lot of injury history, like I said. And I talked about all the greats that have bounced back from it. You want to know how Michael Penix has bounced back for it? Last season, 2023, he had the second best ever recorded pressure to sack percentage. That means he is escaping a whole shitload of pressures. And I know his offensive line is pretty fucking good, but he's escaping the pressures. They're allowing the pressures, and he is escaping them and not getting sacked. He had the second lowest percent ever pressure to sack. Who is number one? Michael Penix in a different year. I believe it was 2020. I don't remember off the top of my head, though. So Michael Penix, it's not affecting his mobility when he needs to move. It's not affecting him in the pocket. He is a fantastic pocket passer. I mean, I don't know, man. All these things that people knock him on, it's just non-factors to me. And you can say that a lot of my stuff is speculation. Like, I'm speculating that he'll bounce back, but he proved it's not affecting his movement. He actually proved that this past year. So I don't know, man.
You just said something that was news to me about the escapability percentage, and that alone actually just sold me, because I was like, okay, let's stop and think. The man of this division is none other than Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes has hose for an arm. Michael Penix has a hose for an arm. So where Patrick Mahomes is absolutely destroying other teams is in the escapability factor. Aiden O'Connell does not have that. Gardner Minshew has some escapability, but his escapability isn't as good as Penix's escapability. And the fact that Michigan was able to get to him as early and as often as they did is an indictment on his offensive line, who was unable to offer any form of resistance. But you've got a guy, an escapability factor, a huge arm, a cerebral guy, and he possesses, like Mahomes, just enough speed to continue to get out of the way, keep things going, and take something when it's open. And if you what is this dude's name? I want to say the passing game coach, the quarterbacks coach that we brought in.
Oh, I can't remember.
But because Craig was the offensive line, he's had a weird name. Hold on. But in any case, the new QB coach that they signed puts a value and a premium on a quarterback being able to stay and deliver in the pocket, because that's his job and that's where he's supposed to be.
Yeah, and while you're digging up that,
Rick Scangarello is who that is. So he came from the Niners, and he worked with Jimmy, he worked with Purdy, he worked with Trey Lance as well. And when Trey Lance came in, I remember now, because he had a glowing review of Trey Lance and his ability to run around but not be able to throw from the pocket versus a good pocket passer like one Kenny Pickett. That was probably not the hill that I would have died on, but it's the one that he chose, the point he made, and it made sense. And it would make more sense for him to have a guy like Michael Penix Jr. versus a Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to go back to something you said earlier about how, you talked about Gardner Minshew being able to escape pressure. The difference between Penix and Gardner Minshew is it's not as natural for Gardner Minshew. Gardner has the speed to get away from pressure if that's what he has to do. But Penix has the natural feel to sense pressure and avoid it or get the ball out, whatever he has to do. So that one is just having the physical skills, Gardner Minshew, and the other is having the mental feel as well as the physical skill, which is Penix. There's a big difference in those two.
Yeah. Absolutely. There is a big difference of having it, not having it. And the fact that Penix does, it just goes to show exactly why you need him to be your quarterback. And as we continue down his many traits, because I'm still trying to find a reason why he shouldn't be a first round draft pick. Washington was in the national championship. I don't believe Washington lost a game until they played Michigan, who also did not lose a game.
No, they didn't. In fact, they played Oregon when they were both undefeated. There's a big thing, Bo Nix versus Michael Penix, and Penix. We talked about this on a podcast because I remember saying this at a different point in the show, earlier show, where I remember Oregon just had the lead, and Michael Penix, it was his turn to get the ball and deliver. It was going to be the last drive of the game, and he's over there chilling, freestyling with his teammates, freestyling, rapping, not a care in the world. It looks like this guy isn't dialed in. It looks like this guy doesn't have a clue what's going on. He gets the football, he marches down, he scores, game over, Washington wins. So he's cool, collective. It's not phased, doesn't lose big games, which I know is funny because he lost the national championship, but he didn't lose the damn game before that the whole season. So
I was stopping to think, and I was like, that's 3 times in a row that Michael Penix Jr. beat Oregon, wasn't it?
I can't remember.
They beat him twice last year, in season and in the Pac-12 championship, and then when it counted, and then I want to say they beat them last year as well, or the year before that.
I can't remember, but I know the game this year between them. That was, like I said, they were both undefeated. I mean, that changed the trajectory.
They beat him 37-34. So he's beaten Bo Nix 3 times in a row. But we're gonna put Bo Nix as a quarterback over him 3 times in a row in 2 years. Dan Lanning, who went out there talking about we're stacking W's because he went out there and beat a hapless Prime. I'm not gonna call him hapless, but Prime's team after they got figured out.
Yeah, Michael Penix, man. I mean, that's the other thing that bothers me is another argument that people make, but this has zero merit at all. It's Michael Penix doesn't do good in big games, which is absolutely untrue. It's just the one Michigan game where they played the Michigan's absolutely out of this world defense. And Michigan obviously won the national championship. So if you're going to lose to a team, lose to them, like that's the team to lose to.
And it was a different style, and Michigan was able to take advantage of the weakness to their defense. And the weakness to their defense, as was a lot of the Pac-12 conferences defense, was the run game. And their concepts were, if they were elite, I don't know if I'd call them elite, or as probably more so overwhelming. They just didn't have enough guys of size out there to compete with being spread out, triple tight end with 3 tight ends, all spread out, then bunching up and really running 8-9 men offensive lines.
Yeah, man. And here's the other thing is these guys, Drake May, Caleb Williams, and I mean, really, anybody you want to name in this draft class, I'm not trying to slander them when I say this, but I'm just following the static logic that people use when they say Michael Penix isn't a winner because he didn't win the big game. None of them were even in that position. None of them were even in that position to play in that game. So what does that say about them if you're saying Michael Penix can't win the big game? What does that say about all the other quarterbacks who could not even make it there? So you got to,
Or by that logic, why aren't we talking about J.J. McCarthy being the number 1 overall pick? Because if we're comparing who won the big one, yeah, it's nice that those 2 guys won Heisman trophies, but when it came to hoisting the championship,
that was fantastic point, Phil. Fantastic point.
Because this ain't Highlander, but there can only be one quarterback hoisting the trophy.
No, that's a great point, man. I wasn't even thinking of going there. That was great.
But we know that to be true, that J.J. McCarthy is not the best quarterback in this draft. So you can't be, and he's not a winner. We got 15-0. We won won a game in the college football playoff system, and he's not a winner because he got beat by Michigan, who beat everyone, who won the championship.
doesn't make sense, man. It's just something. What that is people not watching college football all season, then watching the playoffs because the playoffs are the thing to watch, and so they've watched maybe 1, 2, 3 games all season of the college football season, and that happens to be one of the 3 games that they saw. So they're like, well, I watched this game because one of the only 3 games I saw all season, Michael Penix did not win. Therefore, he is not a winner. That's all that is.
It's crazy to me. Never mind the fact that his entire team let him down. But it is what it is. And then the coach split almost immediately after. I went to go coach Alabama.
Whole team.
What does that tell you about his value to the franchise? That he knew that without Michael Penix, he didn't have anything. Without his wide receivers, without his running back, he didn't have his linemen. He didn't have nothing. There was no backup plan. He left. He just bounced.
No, for sure. And everybody who was worth anything followed him.
Yeah, those that would have been the holdovers who didn't declare.
Yeah.
And all of these, I can do this all day. Sit here and continue to debunk all of these Michael Penix Jr. hates and why he shouldn't be drafted. But I want to switch gears and talk, instead of talking about why somebody can't be drafted, talk about why somebody should. And there's a quarterback who's not being mentioned at all. A couple of them, but this quarterback was also undefeated, also leading his team to a conference championship, the ACC Player of the Year, and that was Jordan Travis for Florida State. And looking at his game, I went back and I watched his highlight tape, and that's the highlight tape. I'd obviously need to go back and do my process and watch all of them to see. But from what I saw of him, said he reminds me a lot of young Russell Wilson, but when you listen to him talk, he's got his head on straight.
Yeah, Jordan Travis he's actually my QB, probably 5 in the draft, which leaps over Bo Nix. Leaps over Bo Nix, yeah, for sure. It might be my QB 6 actually, because I guess Penix would be 4. Yeah, no, I like Jordan Travis. Is the point I'm trying to make.
At 5 or 6 best, I think you like Jordan Travis a lot less than I do, but that's okay. But Jordan Travis did a little bit of everything. Did he have the elite arm that all of these other guys did? No, I wouldn't say that it's as big of an arm, but it's big enough to get it done. It's big enough. He had a lot to work with in Florida State. Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson Jr., excuse me, Trey Benson, Jaheim Bell. They had a lot going on over there at Florida State, which is why he was able to enjoy so much success. But what really stands out to me, and it should when you're looking at college numbers, because I believe the numbers why Bo Nix is rated above Michael Penix Jr. is how well he takes care of the football. I think, if I recall correctly, Travis had thrown 5 picks in 2 years.
Yeah, that's money. That's money.
Yeah, he's taking care of the ball. Said he's reading defenses. He's getting in and out of plays, making the adjustments. He's throwing balls with anticipation in places where only his receiver could go up and get it. Now, granted, he probably had the biggest receiving core in the league. With anytime your shortest receiver is 6'4", so you stand to enjoy a lot of success throwing it to the Oaks.
No, you're not joking, man. Just throw it up. They'll come down with it.
Yeah, they'll come down with it. Your other receiver's 6'7". It's like, good Lord. Huge.
Man.
It said 6'4" is the little guy, huh? Yikes. But watching him and listening to him, you want to talk about a guy who has the mindset. And that more than anything is what drew me to him was the mindset. Said he's about competition. Said he's ready to. If he didn't come, if he wasn't ready to compete, then why are you here? Like we're here to compete day in and day out. All the credit goes to my guys. Love these guys. We work together. I lead with positivity. I'm not no rah rah guy. I get in here and I'm gonna go out here and we gonna make it happen on the field. And I'm gonna do my job, which is cool because the Raiders already have a rah rah guy. That's the coach.
Yeah.
Said nobody. You got the coach. You got Max. I'm sure Devontae, when the time comes, can be enough of a rah rah guy. That might have been Josh, but we don't know. We don't know what Zamir is like. Last I saw, he was curling. He was curling 25 with horrible technique, but he was hulking out, and he let his voice be heard. I was like, oh, said there's a dog. There's dog there. There's lead dog there. Potential.
Yeah, man, that's a crazy video. I mean, that's 50 pounds more than my weight. Not 50, 40. Yeah, damn. Yeah, that's a lot of fucking weight. That is a lot of fucking weight.
7 times I counted him.
Dude on the live said someone got to do it, but it ain't gonna be me.
Yeah, I was like, I'm impressed. I am. Said, and it's amazing that he can do that. I'm gonna need him to chill on that though. Like, we need you for the season. We don't need you to tear a bicep over here curling 225 at the homie's house for no reason, just because you can.
Oh man, yeah, you're not wrong. You are not wrong.
Just because I remember when I was hitting the weights and I'd throw them up just because, do something silly because I knew I could, but. We need you on the field, big guy. Big dog, we need you on the field. Save some of that for them Derrick Henry stiff arms to somebody's face so you can be on Sports Center.
No, for sure.
But back to Jordan Travis. There's not a throw he can't make. Said he also feels pressure, escapes the pocket, runs with the ball, scores the football. And would do everything that you would possibly want to check off to be a potential first round draft pick. The only knock that is on him is him breaking his ankle.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And we saw Dak come back from that.
Yeah, it's just an injury that all quarterbacks come back from. Not worried about. If I'm not worried about Michael Penix tearing both ACLs, you think I'm worried about a broken ankle? Ain't no way.
Yeah, they'll fix it. They get a couple pins in there, and what makes it, this is the pretty little bow on top to bring up why I bring his name up. He's supposed to be cleared for action in April, which means that he will be cleared for action to be able to start the season in OTAs on time.
That's big.
That's huge. And if you're not able to get up to the top 3 because it's going to cost you everything that you've ever thought of being able to draft for the next couple years, and for some strange reason you would want to wait and not draft Michael Penix, strange reason.
Because he's not a winner.
Somehow that makes sense to you. He's not drafting 4,900 yards, 35 touchdowns, and a trip to the national championship game. That's not the guy that you want to draft for some reason.
He lost it is the thing, man. That's
the Heisman Trophy winner didn't even make it to the college football playoffs, and the 1 overall draft pick lost 5 games this year. Make that make sense.
Oh man, talk that shit. Shit.
Jordan Travis would be a nice consolation for you right there at my pick number 4. Probably my QB4. And really, at this point, I'd have to debate on if he was. Yeah, he's 4. Because there's a guy that everybody just assumes is going to be the 2nd overall pick who has no hype, who's got no sizzle. So you're not even seeing his highlight film anymore. I bet you if I said Drake, you wouldn't be able to connect May. You'd just be thinking about Drake and the jerkin video.
Oh my God, bro! You think about Toronto. I
All
say
right?
Toronto.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, not the guy that's gonna get drafted number 2 overall. Like, geez. Said we remember the number 2 overall pick from the '98 draft like it was yesterday.
You wildin'.
Tell me I'm lying. Tell me I'm lying.
You're right, man. No hype behind him right now.
None. Drake May. Yeah, I'm like, I put that to get Google it right now. You just won't be able to find shit on him.
I did see that someone from Pro Football Network had him as the number 1 quarterback prospect in the draft over Caleb. I did see that today. But other than that, I mean, I don't even know if you can call that hype. That's one guy saying he's good.
Yeah, the Giants had Drake May and J.J. McCarthy in for visits last week. All we've heard is how much they like J.J. McCarthy and want to get rid of Daniel Jones for J.J. McCarthy, probably because they didn't want to draft another one of those tobacco road fellas to go out there and try to be their quarterback. But it's incredible. People are going to want who they want, but it all comes back. It all brings us back to the topic of the show. No matter who your guy is, if that's your guy, the Raiders are in a competitive position, and adding your quarterback will take the current lid off of what your capabilities are and allow you to ascend to the next level. Without a team, we weren't going to get to the playoffs. Without a quarterback, you're not going to get to the playoffs. The answer sits behind us.
Michael Penix, quarterback.
That's the answer.
There is something that I wanted to share. I talked to you about this a little bit before the show, but there's something about Michael Penix that we haven't spoken of, and it relates to the Raiders, their ups and downs in the last 2 years very well, and why Michael Penix would be a perfect thing. And that is, he has tossed, what's the number I sent you? 117? Pretty sure it is.
17.
117 balls, 20-plus yards downfield last year. That's not completions, that's just attempts. And I'll talk about why that's significant. In second place of the whole FBS was 97. I forget who it was, but it was 97. That's 20 more than anybody else. Why is that significant? In 2022, when Derek Carr was the quarterback, he had the 4th most throws of 20-plus yards downfield. This keeps defenses honest. And if you want proof of that, Davante Adams, he has had an illustrious career just in Green Bay, before he went to the Raiders. He came to the Raiders where Derek Carr was just tossing bombs. He put up his number 1 of his career, highest of his career, yards per reception mark at 15.2. He almost beat his total yardage of the season. He played 17 games that season. It was the first 17-game season, I believe, or he played only 16 for whatever reason the year before. Regardless, he played one more game with Derek Carr, so that might be a little bit why. But he had all those yards. He had over 1,500. He had 14 touchdowns, led the league in receiving touchdowns. Highest ever of his career, yards per reception. Okay, that's what happens when you throw the ball deep. Also, what happens when you throw the ball deep is it affects your running game. Josh Jacobs is able to lead the league in rushing yards. Josh Jacobs is able to be a first-team All-Pro. That's because Derek Carr was keeping defenses honest by throwing the ball deep 71 times. 4th most in the league, had double-digit touchdowns when doing that. It was a threat. This past year, Aiden O'Connell did it 34 times. That's it. Just 34 times. What happened as a result? Davante Adams' numbers dropped. Josh Jacobs' numbers plummeted. Absolutely plummeted. That needs to change. Is Gardner Minshew going to be the guy that changes it? Last year, Gardner Minshew threw the ball 51 times that far downfield. That's an increase from Aiden O'Connell, but it's not effective because only 3 of them went for touchdowns. Aiden O'Connell, in his 34 attempts, 5 of them went for touchdowns. So Aiden O'Connell was more efficient, doing it 17 times less. So you need somebody who not only can throw the deep ball, but can do it effectively. Michael Penix, with all them throws, 16 of them went for a touchdown last year. You need a guy who can bomb it and be effective, because that opens up the running game. And when the running game is opened up, that opens up the passing game. They feed off of each other. And it all starts by you being able to throw it deep. And that is why Michael Penix for the Raiders is a perfect fit. And that's it.
There you have it. So that's why Michael Penix is a perfect fit. I mean, I had put a tweet out earlier this week that said, so I am a left-handed quarterback with deadly accuracy, an elite big-time arm, who can move around and avoid pressure, but has got some questionable knees. Who am I?
Background.
And the answer would be Kenny Stabler.
Penix is pretty close to that.
I'm just saying. Just go throw that out there as a potential comparison, and watch the timeline go crazy and tell me how little I know. And those who do remember and those who know the history will now stop and look at it and be like, you know what, the light will go off. I just know he might be on something.
Yep, for sure.
But we'll see who likes, we'll see who subscribes, we'll see who tells a friend, we'll see who wants to become a member of the Unfiltered and subscribe on the YouTube page. It's a little box in there that says members. Who wants to donate and continue to see the show grow, so we can get Alex a laptop, so we can get him a microphone, and we can hear what he has to say, and he doesn't have to sound like he's on the toilet.
Oh my God, bro. Why do you always gotta bully me? Why do you always gotta bully me, Phil?
It's all good. It's all done with love. But you got anything to add?
I think we covered pretty much everything we could cover.
You got anything coming out that you want the people to view, people to see, hear about?
I'm just touching up final touches on a very long article about why the Raiders should go quarterback. A lot of it is very simple, a lot of it should be very simple, being most important position in the league and biggest need. It's that simple, but I'm going even beyond that. And I'm going into the details with Michael Penix Jr., how it benefits, and other quarterbacks, how it would benefit. Why a quarterback right now benefits the Raiders roster and their current roster construction more than anything. What we saw when the Raiders didn't have a quarterback and had a great defense last year, and they still were below 500. A lot of that kind of stuff and more. And it took me a lot of time. I mean, this is 12 hours in the making. It might be more, but yeah, very detailed. It's that detailed.
You have it. Thank you for tuning in. He's Alex. I'm Phil. We are the AP Cast, and God bless. We're out.